It's the Alien Conspiracy Podcast. We are your hosts, Agent ETA,
Agent Ether,
Agent Kruger,
and Agent Anderson. Come along as we examine UFO sightings, conspiracies, and all things strange. You can follow the show on Twitter at AlienConPod. We also have an email address, alienconpod@protonmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And don't forget to check out our Facebook page and group and page. All right. This week's episode, The Valentich Disappearance. October 21st, 1978, at 7:12 p.m., 20-year-old Frederick Valentich, flying a Cessna 182, disappears over the Bass Strait in Australia. What happened to this young man? Did he succumb to the planet Venus? Perhaps a green flash got him? Or was it aliens? Let's find out in this week's episode, The Valentich Disappearance. All right. This is a fun one.
Yeah, it is. And it connects to a lot of different things too, just in general, just like the area it happened in. There's a lot of cool stuff that has happened in this area.
Yeah. And well, I mean, by fun, I mean it's an interesting case. It's definitely not fun for young Frederick or his family.
Yeah.
Right.
I may have phrased that inappropriately.
Yeah, whatever. It happened so long ago, right?
It is an older case. It is 15 years old. So what made you pick this case specifically?
What do you mean 15 years old?
It's 78. It's funny. You know where I got that from?
Where?
I was watching, Unsolved Mysteries.
Oh, yeah. From like the 90s or whatever?
Oh, I think it was, yeah. It was old. That's what I have in my notes.
Okay.
Really old.
It's quite a bit older than that, but
that's before I was born, 78.
I mean, these people could still be around. I think his parents are not, but his siblings could be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, very well they could be, definitely. But anyway, so yeah, Frederick Valentich, he was a young man at the time of his disappearance. He was still living with his parents in Avondale Heights. He worked as a shop assistant in an army disposal store at Money Ponds. And I'm not really sure what an army disposal store is, but it sounds like an exciting job.
I read that it was like an army surplus store.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Agree with Agent ETA there.
That sounds about right. Sure.
Yeah.
I was thinking.
Sorry for the interruption.
I was thinking more along the lines of like bomb disposal or something more exciting like that.
Oh, that's too cool.
But
cool.
Army surplus store sounds a little bit more reasonable. Yeah. So young Frederick wanted to be a professional pilot. At first, he tried to apply to the Royal Australian Air Force, but he didn't make the cut because he lacked the proper educational background. He was working towards becoming a commercial pilot, but twice he failed the exams. While he was flying, he had a couple of incidents. He actually strayed into a control air zone above Sydney one time, and he got in a little bit of trouble for that. And he also had two other incidents where he intentionally flew into clouds, and they were considering prosecution. And that's because he didn't have the proper instrument rating to fly without visuals. And that's probably why they got mad at him for that. But I just think, I thought it was kind of funny because you have this guy, he's 20 years old, he's almost still a kid, and you put him in an airplane, of course he's going to fly into the clouds. That's what you do when you're young and stupid, right?
Hey, I think most youngins have a little bit of a daredevil in them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, you have that a lesser fear of repercussion, I guess, or a fear of your own mortality. You're just not that in tune with it yet at that age. You know?
And it's not like he was flying under a bridge. He just flew into a cloud, you know?
Yeah, well, but that instrument rating is actually very key. It's a key reason why he went on the flight that he did that day, because he had actually tried to go on the same flight. It wasn't the day before. It wasn't too long before this, right? But there was too much weather. So with that instrument rating, he's only able to fly alone while there's like perfect like visual, like a perfect visual scenario. He can see all obstructions. There's nothing being obstructed by weather or anything like that, right?
So what's he looking for? Like other planes, mountains, like
mountains, the sea, everything. You have to be able to see like where you are in conjunction with any kind of terrain, right? So like if there's any mountains or anything like that, you got to be able to see that coming up. And also, like, yeah, other planes in particular, too.
So would he be rated to fly at night?
Yes.
What do you guys think? He was.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's different than zero visibility. And you can get
Yeah.
disoriented while flying. For example, who was it? JFK Jr. is probably the most famous example I can think of. He was flying in poor conditions. He was not rated to fly in those conditions, and he made a miscalculation and crashed. I think
Right into the side of a mountain, right?
it's something. No, I thought it was like an ocean.
In the
Yeah,
ocean?
I
Yeah.
saw some
Okay, I might
comparisons
be-
to that crash and the disappearance. Actually, some skeptics say
really?
that it was pretty much the exact same scenario.
Well, it wasn't, but
Oh,
you know,
No, I didn't say that. I said some skeptics say.
we'll get to the skeptics. But
I actually think JFK Jr. is still alive. He staged his own death.
yep, could be. Hey, why not? You know,
I'm joking.
he was hiding from the
I don't know.
mobsters.
I don't know a damn thing about that case, to be honest.
It's-
I mean, very minimal information.
I don't think there's really anything mysterious about it. It was just a simple mistake, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, but it is definitely a case that there is a lot of conspiracy theories surrounding it. Like there are some things that I've heard just in passing seem to have some weight, but only maybe just for the conspiratorial mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know.
At the time of the incident, Frederick had about 150 hours of flying experience. Although he had failed his tests, he was young and inexperienced, and it's sort of, sometimes it's pointed out that he failed those tests, so he was sort of not that skilled as a pilot, and maybe he got disoriented. We'll probably talk about that a little more later. But 150 hours is decent, but that's fairly inexperienced. And it's just important to point out that he was not, a veteran pilot. He was a young dude who had recently started flying. And it's sort of important to the case. Something to consider. I don't think it necessarily the case hinges on it, but it's just something interesting to think about.
150 hours at 20. That's pretty good now. 1970 something. What?
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, and it's not a small amount of hours, but it's not like you had just said. By no means is that grant
Oh
veteran
no,
status.
that's not
you know?
meant. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Correct. I agree.
But the one thing that I did notice while kind of absorbing those facts, little factoids, is at the very least, this guy, he definitely seemed to be highly motivated to reach this goal. He was either going to be a commercial airplane pilot or he's going to be in the Air Force or something. You know what I mean?
Right.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
So-
he wanted to be in the RAAF. He had
Yeah.
grand aspirations, that's for sure.
His family said he
So-
loved flying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So somebody like that, I gotta believe that as long as you're somewhat competent, you're going to gain skills over time, which is going to eventually. I think he would have became a very competent pilot just because of the his level of dedication to this very thing. You know what I
I
mean?
agree with that. Yeah.
But he wasn't there yet.
Yeah. Anybody unfamiliar, it's incredibly competitive to get into the Air Force or, commercial piloting.
Well, back then, think about the time period in which this happened. This was. I mean, it was a sexy thing to be an airplane a pilot during this period of time. You know what I mean? It was a very, very popular, profession that younger individuals were going after. You know?
Yeah. That
But,
reminds me
hey.
of Airplane. You guys remember Airplane?
Hell yeah.
Say, Timmy, have you
Oh,
ever
yeah.
seen a grown man naked?
I saw that movie when I was very young, and it creeped me out.
Same.
One thing that, just a little side note here, one thing that blew me away about that movie, it's rated PG, right? But
Oh right.
Yeah,
There's a-
yeah,
there-
that's the good old days.
there's a scene in the terminal when they're walking by a magazine rack, and there's some Playboy magazines or something like that on the magazine rack. Full on
Oh,
titties
yeah.
right there in the magazine.
Yep.
You can it's totally on screen. You can totally see it. I'm like, how did that get a PG rating? That's crazy. Not that I don't care that much. It's just if it's got naked boobies, it should be PG-13, right? I thought that's how it worked. I don't know. Whatever.
I would think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Surely you can't be
Sure.
serious.
Sir, these blinking lights are blinking out of sequence, sir.
Don't call me Shirley. Shirley. No, seriously. How does it go? I don't know, man. It's been a while since I saw it, but it's
No, it is that way. And don't call me Shirley.
it's a classic,
right.
man. I love that movie.
Well, how the hell did we get on this topic?
I don't know, man. Let's get back to Valentich. Okay. So on October 21st, on October 21st, on October 21st, he flew a Cessna 182L Skylane out of Moorabbin Airport. That's Moorabbin, Airport near Melbourne. The Skylane had one engine and 4 seats, and it had a cruising speed of about 160 miles an hour. And this is a very, very common airplane. You can look up pictures of it or whatever if you want to see it. I think it's pretty sweet looking, but it's if you see a Cessna flying, there's a decent chance it might be a 182 of some variation. But anyways, his flight plan indicated he was supposed to fly west or southwest to Cape Otway and then south across the Bass Strait to King Island. He was supposed to pick up passengers on the island and then return. He had brought 4 life jackets with him. Now, this is where it starts to get a little weird, because that's what he told in his flight plan, or what he told at the airport, that he was going to go and get passengers.
As you were saying that, I was trying to hold myself back. He said that, but he also says a different thing to his family, though, too.
He told us.
Yeah,
go ahead.
So this is sorry to interject here, but this is one of the competing theories. Is that there's a lot of things that don't quite line up about what he said and did. Is because all right, so he told his family that he was going for crawfish, from what I understand, right?
Right. Yeah.
By the way, the crawfish were out of season at that point, so he couldn't have been going down there, to get crawfish. And then he told the people at the airport he was going down there to pick up some waiting passengers, which there's no records of any waiting passengers ever having been there that I saw.
Right, and when they investigated, the investigation found that there was nobody there waiting for him. There were no passengers. So that was
That's odd, right?
I'm trying to hold back here because there's a lot of, once we get into the theories and stuff, I think we should probably talk a little bit more about this. But yeah, make sure that
I'll get into that theory too. Yeah.
Yes, because like I said, there's some stuff that you're like, wait a minute, what? Why wouldn't you do this? I don't know. I don't want to get too far into it. We need to continue we need to finish the outline first. You know what I mean? Yeah.
But the first thing that occurred to me when I read about this discrepancy here was, well, it could be something odd, or maybe he was going to visit his little side piece down there on the island, right? Maybe
possible.
Maybe it was nothing mysterious. Maybe he's just, he's not going to tell his family because his family knows his girlfriend, and he's not going to tell his girlfriend because obviously, she wouldn't be happy with it. So it's just, a booty call down there on King Island or whatever.
And being in the 70s where you could possibly get away with, faking your own death. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's another theory entirely. But yeah, another strange detail I found was that he did not ask the airport at King Island to turn on their lights. So this could be a simple oversight from an inexperienced pilot, but people like to cite this when they're talking about one of the theories, which I'm sure we'll get to later. So maybe we'll hold off on that until we get through the outline of it.
And there's actually an important point to make there too, is you wouldn't normally have to call ahead, but this particular airstrip wasn't always manned. So they had a part-time staff, you know what I mean? So you would have to call ahead to make sure that they turned on the lights or something like that for the runway in case you were coming in under, darker circumstances, which he knew the time period that he was traveling there, he would have arrived there, it should have been at least starting to get dark at least, you know what I mean? So if not fully dark. So anybody and everybody traveling to that airstrip would have called ahead well before and let them know, hey, I'm coming, so turn on the damn lights so I can see the airstrip, so I can land, right? So why he didn't do that doesn't make any sense,
Well, we had mentioned earlier that he was nervous about flying over water, so that could be one possibility. I mean, if you've ever been in a state of nervousness, at least myself personally, you're not operating at 100% efficiency if you're super nervous about something. You make mistakes, So that's possible.
Yeah, whatever, dude. I don't get nervous or scared.
Oh yeah, no, not not ETA.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, no, I'm always confident and shit.
I'm the opposite. I'm always nervous.
So anyways, he took off from Moorabbin at about 6:19 p.m. and he reached Cape Otway at 7 o'clock. At 7:06, he called the Melbourne Flight Service Officer, Steve Robbie, Robbie, I don't know, and asked if there were any other aircraft in the area, but there weren't. There was a tape recording of the radio call, but the original was recorded over, unfortunately. So at least that's what they said, the Australian government. They said that the original does not exist any longer. But we don't have the original. They did make some copies of it, which are also
It's like the moon landing.
Yeah.
Sorry, it just reminded me of the moon landing.
Oh, yeah, the moon landings. Yeah. Oh, you should do. We're going to get to that. I'm sure at some point we will definitely get to the moon landings.
Oh, that has to be an episode.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah, that's definitely a good one. But anyways, we have the transcript. We don't have the actual recording. I couldn't find it anywhere. There's reenactments, but unfortunately, we just have the transcripts. But lucky for you, dear listener, Agent ETA and myself are going to reenact this transcript.
Will it be with an
Wait.
Australian accent?
Oh, no. Even if we tried, it wouldn't be.
Okay.
It's going to be with a ridiculously
he's
stupid
bloody on me.
accent. I can guarantee you that.
Oh, Agent Kruger, do you have an Australian accent for us?
I can get it working here. Just give me a sec. It's not consistent. I don't know. Give me a sec, mate. That's not a bloody fucking dagger.
you
That's
go.
not a knife. This is
That's
a
not,
knife.
there you go.
Oh,
That's
there you
the
go.
one.
Hey,
Not bad.
that's not bad. Hey,
That's better than I could do.
maybe you should read it, Kruger.
Hey,
Oi, it's bloody on me. Get off
Hey,
me,
just-
you bloody dicker.
just make sure you blokes be a good motherfucker. All right.
Make sure you blokes be a good motherfucker, eh?
If you ever have
I'm getting
if you ever have a reason to celebrate, just make sure you do a shoey, right?
Yeah.
Shoey, a little busy
You ever done a
pop-
shoey?
Savages.
Busy.
Savages, I tell you.
Savages, I tell ya. Savages. I'm trying to I gotta diversify it's hard to keep the accent.
Yeah.
I will tell you one thing that's for damn sure is like, I've only met a couple Australians in my life, and both times were like we were partying, and they were some of the funnest motherfuckers I've ever hung out with. Like,
Oh, yeah.
they were just down for whatever.
Oh, they really
dude.
are.
Like,
They really are.
whatever.
Aussies are
Let's do
great.
it.
Shout out to the Aussies. Hopefully we have some of them
Hey,
listening.
Aussie. Oi, oi, oi.
Yeah, we have fans. I interact
Hey,
with them on Facebook.
for our
It's fun.
listeners in Australia, if you guys are listening, I just want to say Robert Whitaker is one of my heroes. Okay, that's a good motherfucker right there.
Russell
all right?
Crowe's a badass.
I don't know if I'd say that, but
I'm just kidding.
hey, you know,
Him and Tuggy, huh?
everybody got their opinion.
He's an actor, that's for sure. All right. Let's get to this transcript here. All right, I'll start off. I guess I'll be Valentich.
Okay,
This is starting at 1906, 14 seconds. That's 7 o'clock and 6 minutes for all you non-military types out there. So anyways, he says, Melbourne, this is Delta Sierra Juliet. Is there any known traffic below 5,000?
Delta Sierra Juliet, no known traffic.
Delta Sierra Juliet, I am. Seems to be large aircraft below 5,000.
Delta Sierra Juliet, what type of aircraft is it?
Delta Sierra Juliet, I cannot affirm. It is 4 bright. And it seems to me like landing lights.
Delta Sierra Juliet, and then in parentheses here it says, this statement affirms to the pilot that the person on the ground heard the transmission, or his
Okay, so
transmission.
just like a confirmation. All right.
Exactly, yeah.
And then Melbourne, this is Delta Sierra Juliet. The aircraft has just passed over me at least 1,000 feet above.
Delta Sierra Juliet, Roger, and is it a large aircraft? Confirm?
Unknown. Due to the speed it's traveling, is there any Air Force aircraft in the vicinity?
Delta Sierra Juliet, no known aircraft in the vicinity.
Melbourne, it's approaching now from due east towards me.
Delta Sierra Juliet,
Open microphone for about 2 seconds, and then Delta Sierra Juliet, it seems to me that he's playing some sort of game. He's flying over me 2-3 times at speeds I could not identify.
Delta Sierra Juliet, Roger. What is your actual level?
My level is 4,500, 4500.
Delta Sierra Juliet, and confirm. You cannot identify the aircraft?
Affirmative.
Delta Sierra Juliet, Roger. Standby.
Melbourne, Delta Sierra Juliet. It's not an aircraft, it is. And then an open microphone for 2 seconds.
Delta Sierra Juliet, Melbourne. Can you describe the aircraft?
Delta Sierra Juliet, as it's flying past, it's a long shape. 3-second pause. Cannot identify more than it has such speed. 3-second pause. It's before me right now, Melbourne.
Delta Sierra Juliet, Roger. And how large would the object be?
Delta Sierra Juliet, Melbourne. It seems like it's chasing me. What I'm doing right now is orbiting, and the thing is just orbiting on top of me also. It's got a green light and sort of metallic-like. It's all shiny on the outside.
Delta Sierra Juliet.
Delta Sierra Juliet. Then 3-second pause. It's just vanished.
Delta Sierra Juliet.
Melbourne. Would you know what kind of aircraft I've got? Is it a military aircraft?
Delta Sierra Juliet. So I'm just saying this so many damn times in a row. It's just like, I know it's a confirmation every time. Like I understand, but it's just like I feel like a robot or a robot, whichever. Anyways, Delta Sierra Juliet confirmed the aircraft just wait. Did I just skip ahead?
Nope. Yeah, that's what I have next.
Oh yeah. Confirm the aircraft just vanished.
Say again.
Delta Sierra Juliet, is the aircraft still with you?
Delta Sierra Juliet. It's 2-second pause. Now approaching from the southwest.
Delta Sierra Juliet.
Delta Sierra Juliet. The engine is rough idling. I've got it set at 2324, and the thing is.
Delta Sierra Juliet, Roger. What are your intentions?
My intentions are to go to King Island, Melbourne. That strange aircraft is hovering on top of me again. 2-second pause here. It is hovering, and it's not an aircraft.
Delta Sierra Juliet.
Delta Sierra Juliet, Melbourne. And then at this point, the microphone is open for 17 seconds, during which you can hear a strange metallic or scraping sound, so this whole transcript is, you can read it, and obviously you want to hear the original voices, because let's be honest here, ETA and I just kind of, that was not our best work, if I'm being honest.
Hey, Delta Sierra Juliet there.
In fact, I kind of want to redo it, but on the other hand, it might be amusing to some people just how badly we did it.
Yeah.
So I'll just
you're
leave
not
it.
bad. It wasn't bad at all. You guys did it.
I don't know. I had fun.
Somebody's laughing with me, somebody's laughing at me. Either way, I call it a win. You know what I'm saying? But
As long as they're laughing, I'm happy.
yeah, exactly. But anyways, so that scraping sound, that's really why I wanted to hear the recording of this, but I couldn't find
Right.
it anywhere. I spent a couple hours looking for it.
I know.
It's not there.
I know. I saw some like people talking about it like on Reddit and stuff, and like give me some hope. Like, oh, there's a copy out there floating around. Like I just heard it. It turns out that like that whole thing was bullshit. Like, and I went on this like, I don't know, like an hour and a half like long like tangent, like scouring the internet for this one little like thread of information that I thought I found, but it turns out it was absolutely nothing to begin with.
Yeah.
Like,
I did find there were a couple of reenactments that people put sound effects in the reenactment to reenact the 17 seconds.
yeah.
But so people talk about those reenactments as if that was the real recording. But I looked at some of those, and none of them, I don't think any of them were the actual recording. They were all just like sound effects that had been cleverly
There's some
edited.
good ones out there though.
Yeah, there were some good ones. Yeah, for sure. But none of them are the real deal.
You know, like I don't know who made the one, like one of the ones that like I listened to kind of gave me like goosebumps because it was a very good reenactment. Like it was just like damn, like it kind of put you in like in the moment, it made your imagination kind of just like visualize like what must that pilot have been feeling if this is a real scenario where he's genuinely like feeling very scared because of what's happening around him. You know, like just think about it. All right, so just think about this, right? One of the reasons why people have road rage and stuff while they're driving is because subconsciously, at the very least, their body or their mind is aware that they're traveling at high speeds, and a mess up in the wrong direction could easily spell death or great injury, right? Well, that's going to be even at a heightened level when you're flying a plane. You know what I mean? That type of mindset. You know what I mean? Subconscious, whatever you want to call it. But so like for that very reason, like people could freak out. You know, for reasons that you should not freak out at all, or even become, like some people could get things twisted out of their mind. And this is one of the things that I've heard argued in this case, is that basically he became just like, way too afraid or, just like disoriented, because of his confusion that he caused basically in his own mind. And that's, the reason why he potentially may have crashed into the ocean. But yeah. I mean, I forget why I originally went on this tangent. Whatever.
Yeah.
Moving on.
The interesting thing to me about this is he kept that open for 17 seconds, and there's different models, but generally you have to hold that button down. There are ones where the button will hold itself down, but he kept that open for 17 seconds, and then after that, he was never heard from again. What was he doing during that 17 seconds that the radio was open, where he wasn't talking, he wasn't doing anything? There's just this bizarre clicking noise.
Yeah.
And
one of the things I think sometimes, like my imagination, right? Like, sorry to interrupt again, but like what if what he saw in front of him was so astounding that all he could do was just hold that button open?
Right.
You know?
Or what if he was somehow paralyzed by whatever it
I
was
was
there?
going to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever
Yeah,
it was
sure.
just making him clutch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and all he could do is just clutch onto that thing, exactly. But I also wanted to mention that the sounds of the engine sputtering can be heard on the recording supposedly, but like I said, we couldn't find a copy of it, so we just have to take their word for that. But that's also interesting because if you could hear that for yourself, hear the engine sputtering, perhaps somebody with some mechanical experience would be able to identify or at least maybe narrow what could possibly cause that kind of sputtering, But, unfortunately, we don't have that available to us, so who knows? Now, this tape was analyzed by a UFO group, by, a doctor. I should have written his name down. But anyways, a doctor that used to work for NASA and used to be like a flight crash investigator or whatever. So it's somebody with like, not just some crackpot, but somebody with like real experience and knows his stuff, right? And he was unable to identify the noises. And he even went and got like an actual airplane, the same model airplane, and tried to run the motor on and record under different conditions and like moving the seat back and forward. Because some people say that he had the habit, Valentich or Valentich, or I forget how you say it.
From what I understand, it's Valentich.
Valentich? Okay. He was in the habit of like putting the radio in his lap sometimes, and he might accidentally hit the button with his legs sometimes. So that some people think that maybe he accidentally held the thing open with his legs, or he pressed the button with his legs while he was adjusting his seat, and that might cause some of these metallic sounds. But they tested.
He probably used a Thigh Master. Was that around back then?
I think it was.
No,
maybe.
No,
I
that
don't
was more like
think
the
it was.
80s.
Yeah.
I think you're right. Late 80s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. Never mind then.
But they tried all this different stuff out, and they couldn't replicate this metallic sound at all. So that's kind of interesting that, using the same aircraft and similar flight conditions and whatever. But that doesn't necessarily lead you to any conclusions, unfortunately. It does eliminate a couple of possibilities, though. One interesting thing that I came across is there's a couple of people, one of them was actually from the Australian government, who said that the tape that was released to certain people, so they released the tape to Frederick's father and to this one researcher. It was actually copies. It wasn't the original.
Yeah.
But they
I heard a couple different stories. I heard as far as the father is concerned, I heard that he wasn't given a copy of it, but he was allowed to listen to an edited like recording.
Right, and that's what I was getting at, is that the transcript we just read you was edited. That was not the entire conversation. And it kind of makes you wonder, what did they cut out, right? Because what's in there is already highly interesting and unusual. So what are they hiding? Are they hiding, maybe it's just personal information, or I don't know. What could they possibly cut out?
Why would they need to edit to begin with?
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And these radios, as far as I know, these radio transmissions are not like scrambled or anything. Anybody with a radio could have listened in on the conversation. Of course, probably they weren't, but I mean, they could have been. But yeah, anyways, that's just one detail I found that I didn't know about that when I'm familiar with this case, but I hadn't heard that before. And I was like, what? All right, well, that's just another tantalizing piece of weirdness for this case. It just, the more you dig into it, the stranger it gets. But anyways, the guy who was on the other end, the FSU controller, his name was Steve Robbie. He had a quote in an interview when they were asking him about this after the fact, and he said, "I think at first he was a little concerned about this other aircraft flying around him, and of course I had to assume that it was another aircraft until it developed and became a little mysterious. Toward the end, I think he was definitely concerned for his safety. I considered that he would have had to have been a good actor to have put it all together the way he did." And I like that quote from the FSU controller because a lot of people, we'll get into the theories later, but a lot of people don't take this at face value and they think there's something else going on there. But the FSU controller says that, he seemed like he was genuinely concerned and that it would have been very difficult for somebody to fake that conversation. And
you know what? One quick point I want to make also during the investigation that actually had to do with NASA, supposedly they had analyzed like the the voice and stuff, and like the different patterns, I guess, that were prevalent within the voice patterns and stuff, and how they thought that, like, how genuine the mood this individual may have been in it was, you know what I mean? And they all arrived on the same conclusion, that it seemed like he was being very genuine, and the emotion that he was, that he was exuding, I guess you could say, whatever, that was a real world scenario. You know what I mean? He really was concerned about what he was seeing, and he really was trying to find out what the hell he was seeing,
Yeah. So after this conversation, after the 17 seconds of silence, an alert went out at about 7:12 p.m. and Valentich failed to reach his destination, or Valentich, or whatever. I forget what we said. But anyways, I'll stick with Valentich. That's what I've been saying. He failed to reach
Valentich.
Yeah. Yeah, that guy.
The only reason why I say Valentich is because I used to work with somebody probably about 10 years ago now. Very good fucking chick, dude. She was a hard charger. Anyways, I'm not going to give away any more details of my profession than that, but like, she was a hard charger, not afraid of a damn thing. And her name was spelled exactly like this, and she pronounced it Valentich.
Okay, well, I'm sure that's accurate then. But so anyways, he failed to reach his destination on King Island, and a search was ordered very shortly thereafter. So I forget the exact timeline, but something like 7:30 or something. I mean, they put out a search with a couple of airplanes like right away. And then over the next 4 days, they used like planes, ships, and divers to look for any sign of him, and they didn't find anything whatsoever. They did find like a fuel slick, but it turned out that it was a marine fuel, not aviation fuel, so that was a dead end.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much all they found. They didn't find anything.
Didn't find any debris, which, I mean, it's such a small plane that, like, really, like, I don't know how much debris you could really expect to find, you know what I mean? Because, like, here's the thing. What was the scenario in which, if this plane did crash into the sea, then, like, you'd have to think about, like, what was this? Was it a straight dive bomb down into the sea, like a nosedive, rather, Or was it like the guy was trying to, like, travel as far as he can and ditch the plane to the sea and maybe hopefully, survive long enough for somebody to rescue him, you know what I mean? Like, so what scenario was it, like, that the plane made contact with the sea, if it is the sea that it went into, which obviously with this area that he was flying in, if he did go down, it almost certainly had to have been the sea,
Now, is there like, were those planes big enough to even hold a black box? Did they have a black box?
Not
I can't remember.
From what I understand.
I don't think so, no. But the airplane, it did have things like seat cushions and life vests, life jackets that were floating items. Like, those things are designed to float. And
here's the thing though, if you ditch a plane, on a very parallel trajectory with the surface of the ocean, then you could land a plane on the surface of the ocean without damaging the aircraft all that much. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
but like, they did have his flight plan, right? So they had his flight plan.
Yeah.
They had his location. He was traveling at a very specific speed, and they know exactly when they lost contact with him. So it makes the search area it narrows it down quite a lot where they had to look for him. So, I mean, if he was there, they should have found something. It's not like they were searching like an entire ocean. They had a very good idea of where he was supposed to be.
But there are very strong currents in that area. I actually looked up some, like, the current charts in that area, and it's nothing to really trifle with. Like, some of those currents in those areas are, I mean, it depends on what season you're talking about, of course, but the season that they were in, there were some strong currents that could move debris out of the way to, like, in a different section, to where they might not find it. You know what I mean?
Right. That is one possibility. Yeah. But another thing, so 5 years after the incident, supposedly somebody found aircraft parts that had partial matching serial numbers somewhere in the Bass Strait. It's kind of interesting, but first of all, the 182, it's one of the most common airplanes in the world for small aircraft, right?
Yeah, even to this day.
Yeah, so it's entirely plausible that within that 5-year period, another airplane could have been lost in the area that could have had a similar serial number, because, I mean, it's, when they make I don't know what the serial numbers look like, but I think it's possible for part of them to match between two airplanes. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
But even,
and also like within like Southern Australia, like this type of travel is much more common than like where we live, for example. You know what I mean? Like in the United States and in the southwest part of the United States, there's a lot of aviation going on here, but it's not like a super common, mode of transportation. At least over there, it is more common than it is over here. You know what I mean? So there are more accidents involved with these particular planes because those planes are very common and they're very popular because of their capabilities. You know what I mean? And they're not extremely expensive compared to other planes of their same capability.
They are nowadays.
Nowadays,
I actually looked it up, and from what I could find, a brand new 182 would, I guess they don't always make them, they switch on and off production, would be about $500,000. You could get a used one in good condition for between like $100,000 and $200,000. But this plane was actually being rented by Valentich, though. He didn't buy this. He was renting it supposedly. But yeah, so I think actually Agent Ether had something she wanted to talk about for this wreckage that was supposedly found.
Well, the wreckage was actually an engine wing flap, and it was in 3 different pieces, very corroded. And they found it on the opposite side of Tasmania, where he was supposed to land on Flinders Island. So for me, it's very unlikely that the current's going to carry it around Tasmania to the other side. I mean, it's quite a distance, and it may not look very far on a map if you're looking at like a globe, but it's actually a very far distance for that kind of wreckage to travel, even with the strong currents. And then later on, the brother wanted to go ahead and get that tested to see if it was, really a match. And that wreckage had either been lost or thrown out, and he wasn't able to get further testing done on it.
Which is what I was sort of, getting at earlier, is that I don't really put a whole lot of stock into this so-called wreckage, because this would be like finding, I don't know, like if you found a piece of Amelia Earhart's plane, which I think they did actually in like 2018 or something. I don't know.
There's been a lot of pieces of wreckage that claim to be part of her plane.
But if you found a piece of wreckage that might be her plane, there's not a chance you would lose that. That's like solid gold. You're going to keep your hands on that thing. You're not going to lose it or throw it out. Not a chance.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, in Australia, this case is a really big deal. In the States, not that many people have heard about it maybe, but in Australia, this was a really big deal. And they're just not going to lose a piece of wreckage from this plane. It's not going to happen. So the whole thing with the wreckage is I had a really hard time verifying with some sort of reputable source that they actually found the wreckage. To me, it seems more like something that they were trying to sell to a newspaper, or a newspaper made up to get headlines. But it doesn't seem super credible that they found this wreckage, but I mean, who knows? I wasn't there. I didn't see it happen, so anything's possible. But yeah, so that was a little bit about the wreckage. It's kind of interesting. Now, the Department of Transport investigated the incident, and they didn't really come up with anything that could explain what happened, but their general conclusion was that it was probably a fatal event. And they didn't say what could have caused it or what could have made it crash or, anything like that. They just sort of said it was, probably fatal. And that's their conclusion, which, as a government entity, you can't really put on your report, UFOs took them. That's not really going to happen. So I can understand that being their conclusion.
You can't make any kind of statement anywhere near that without having any kind of like hardcore factual evidence.
So I can definitely understand why that would be their conclusion. So that's the basic timeline of the events, but there were a couple of other things surrounding it. I don't know if anybody else wants to talk about some of this stuff. Like, there's other witnesses. There was a photograph that was taken that we can talk about. And then we can get on to like some possible explanations perhaps. But does somebody have any notes on the photograph that was taken?
Not I. I know the one you're talking about, but...
Well, there was this guy. He's an experienced photographer. He'd taken thousands of photos. His name was Roy Manifold.
Awesome name.
Very awesome name.
And badass name.
Manifold.
And he was over at Cape Otway, and he was at the lighthouse at sunset.
Is that your manifold, or are you just happy to see me?
Oh.
Sorry, continue.
Sorry, baby. I blew my gasket.
You guys in this name... Or names in general.
This name is so awesome.
That's a serious porn name right there.
This is like the best name ever.
This poor guy. Anyways, he's in the lighthouse. It's sunset, and he's taking a series of photographs, of time-lapsed photographs. And he took 6, and there were some orb-like lights on the first 5, which he thinks were just like, sunspots or just glare. He wasn't really excited about the first 5. But on the 6th, there was a blemish up in the right-hand corner. And he didn't see or hear anything, but later on when he had it developed, he had it analyzed, right? And they send it over to the States.
Right. So just a couple of details. Because it's a time-lapse photo, he had the camera sitting on a tripod. He probably would not have been looking into the sun the whole time. And if he had been anyways, it would have been very bright. And if there was some object, even a boat on the water or whatever, he probably wouldn't have been able to see it. I don't know if anybody's ever looked right into the sun, but it kind of blinds you a little bit. So
I stare in the sun all the time.
Yeah, that could.
Yeah, I do it way more often than I really should.
Especially during an eclipse.
But that could explain why, if there was an object, a strange-looking object in front of him, he might not have seen it because he might not have been looking that way anyways. He might have been, facing a different direction or something. But anyway, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to kind of throw that in there about the time lapse.
So he had it analyzed, and ufologists seem to think that it was an actual object, it wasn't a developing error, and that it was a metallic object surrounded by some sort of gas cloud.
Yeah, gas or mist or perhaps exhaust of some kind.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
But it was a physical
Sounds like
object
Agent
present
ETA was there.
in the picture. What's that? Oh, yeah, that's possible. That's very, very possible. My gamer tag sometimes is gaseous numerous.
I like it. But yeah, actually, I read that that they actually had the object showed up in a couple of the pictures, and that they determined it was moving at 200 miles an hour because they could see movement between frames. But I don't know if that's. I could only find just the one photo, so maybe they determined it was 200 miles an hour because of the movement it exhibited in that one picture. And they know the time lapse, and they know how long that frame would have taken to take. There's a couple different ways.
That seems more probable.
But here's the most important fact I think about that photo, is that they were supposedly able to prove that there was no doctoring done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The photo had not been tampered with. It was an object that they actually photographed.
Right. But if you've seen this photo, to me, it's not real convincing. To me, I got to be honest, it kind of looks like a cloud, but I didn't.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. Also, that very same day, where Valentich disappeared, there had been reports of UFOs coming out of a cloud, because that very same day was a very clear day. Not a whole lot of clouds or anything in the sky really, but there was reported to have been one big cloud. And there was multiple reports, from what I understand, of people observing a UFO object coming out of the cloud. And the reason why, it was this big, tall, like a pyramid-shaped cloud, but it was more shaped like a weird, a tornado of sorts, I suppose. Like if you were observing a tornado from a distance, but it wasn't moving like a tornado. It just had the appearance of a stationary tornado, I guess you could say. But people did claim to see a large object come out of that cloud formation that same day.
I could believe that they travel in within a cloud to hide themselves, obviously. But the picture definitely looks like it could. I see other spots on the actual photo that are kind of similar to the spot that's in the cloud, and he may have just gotten lucky that, I don't know. It's hard. I wasn't there, you know what I mean? And it's the draw distance and the accuracy of the film or the camera being able to use it at that time. Towards the water, under the sun, a little bit to the left, you'll see something that's similar to that type of reflection. And if you go up top to the left-hand side a little bit, you'll see another one. And then towards the rocks even, or the shore, you can see a bunch of little of them. I don't know, just kind of...
Oh, sure.
Sure.
Oh, sure. Don't you know? Yeah.
Don't you know? Yeah.
Yeah,
clam chowder.
It's an interesting picture, but it's not super conclusive.
By the way, was that a good Australian accent?
No.
No.
Oh, sure, don't you know?
No, you guys are going to
great.
offend our
I thought you were
listeners.
doing.
That's not what they sound like?
No.
Well, maybe I haven't. Wait a minute. Maybe I have never met an Australian, actually, now that I think about it. Maybe they're from Minnesota.
Brew. You've met a couple.
Okay.
Wait, he did tell me to pibble pop my tabletop, so I mean, I'm just saying is all. You know, like I thought that was an
Piddle
Australian
pop
term.
your tabletop. I think he
Pibble.
was
Pibble pop.
pibble pop. He was hitting on you.
Oh no, you think so?
Oh, I know so.
All right. Anyways, back to Manifold's photograph. He had placed the negatives along with some personal papers in a security box, but in the year 2000, he reported that the negatives had mysteriously disappeared. And they didn't just melt away, right? Where did they go? Apparently he didn't get rid of them. So I don't know what to make of that, but it's kind of interesting, right?
Well, I read somewhere that his son actually was out there and he heard an engine-like noise that was stationary over the water, although he didn't see anything, and then it just suddenly disappeared. So it could have been a plane, but he seemed to think it wasn't.
Yeah, that's the whole photo thing. It's really interesting, but I don't know what to make of it. I mean, it could be a real object in a cloud, and they did a lot of analysis that seems to draw that conclusion. But on the other hand, it could be a cloud. It could be, a blemish, or it could be anything. The Air Force actually took a look at the picture. They didn't really do any actual analysis, but they pretty much right away came out and said it was a cloud, which kind of makes you go, okay, why are they so concerned about making sure people think this is a cloud?
It didn't look like a cloud to me.
Now I'm starting to think it's not a cloud.
Didn't they also say it was Saturn? They said it was Saturn too, didn't they?
I didn't hear that one about the picture.
Or
It's
Jupiter?
a dark blemish, though. It's not
Yeah.
a light blemish,
Yeah, it's really weird looking, but clouds can look dark like that under the right conditions.
I guess.
I was
Yeah.
being facetious.
I've being near the coast, I've seen clouds like that during sunset and stuff like that.
Yeah, it just depends on how the light works. So you can have clouds that are white, and then you can have a dark one like that has a strange lighting condition. It can happen.
It's a very
let me just tell you, hey,
moisturized cloud.
Yeah.
If you want me to make you a moisturized cloud right now, I could do it.
No,
I just need
that's
to push
okay.
hard enough.
You're gonna poop your pants. No.
Hey, maybe, but maybe not. You know.
Hey, I heard
That's the
farts can
gamble we
spread the
all take,
COVID,
brother.
so
Yeah, we don't want that couve going through. You know.
do you got a face
No,
mask
sir.
down there? Because I don't think you do.
Nah, why not, dude? All right, come on, it's my own brand. Come
Yeah.
on,
Get
now.
the new RGB face mask coming out.
I will consume my
You
own
need to
fecal
cut,
flakes
like,
at the
all
drop of
of
a
it.
dime. Okay.
This is
No,
horrific.
you need to leave it in.
Hey, people want to know about. No, they
I don't think they
They
do.
really don't. Okay, let's move.
They
right
want to hear me
along.
talk about consuming my own fecal flakes. Okay, I know they do.
Let's move right along. So I have some notes here on some other
God, I hope you
witnesses.
keep that in.
I don't know. It might be a little bit much. I don't know. I might cut some of that.
All right.
We'll see. You know, everybody on their show is going to have their own fan base, right? You know, people who
Hey,
are everybody
let me
likes
just say,
something. You know.
Don't be a prude. Okay.
On the other hand, all right, let's move along to some of the other witnesses that came forward around the time. So I actually didn't. I've heard of this case, like I said, but I wasn't aware. In the months leading up to and following this case, it was actually a genuine UFO wave, which
Yeah.
for me makes it a lot more interesting. Like, it's harder to dismiss the UFO angle when you learn that for months people had been seeing like hundreds and hundreds of reports of UFOs around this time. It kind of makes me wonder and become a little less skeptical about what could have actually happened. But lots of people reported strange lights in the skies around this time. One of the most interesting reports was from a family that described seeing Valentich's plane followed by a green light. They said that the plane appeared to be going down at a 45-degree angle, and they said it looked like the plane was about to crash. They lost sight of the plane and the green light behind some hills. Now, this is interesting because supposedly this was before it came out, like the reports or the transcripts were released. So they shouldn't have known that it was a green light. And that sort of makes them more credible. But on the other hand, It was a while ago, and it's hard to say for certain that they hadn't heard from somewhere that it had been a green light following the airplane. So I don't know for sure, but that's an interesting detail that, if that's true, lends a lot of weight to this particular report. But there are also a lot of other reports that are interesting from areas, or from that particular general area, like from Geelong, Frankston, Cape Otway, and the Brighton areas. Like all around that area, lots of witnesses saw stuff. And in general, this is a UFO hotspot in Australia, but particularly around this time. One witness, for example, saw an object shooting out of the water at a high speed near Cape Otway, near the Cape Otway lighthouse. And supposedly this was about 20 minutes before the Valentich disappearance or sighting. But it's a lot of these, it's sort of hard to corroborate or to know exactly if that's true. But if it is, that's highly interesting. There were other witnesses. For example, one saw two cigar-shaped objects moving east to west over Victoria. And they said that these objects were silver-colored. And that could be, kind of similar to what the Valentich guy saw. And a couple more. One woman reported seeing a Ferris wheel in the sky, and two other independent witnesses reported seeing a starfish-shaped object with green lights over the Bass Strait. And they said it was headed towards where Valentich was supposedly flying at the time. And these witness accounts, I don't put too much stock in them, but when this starts to build up and you start to get all these many reports, it's hard to dismiss them entirely and say that they're all completely made up.
Oh yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, at the very least, they're highly, highly interesting.
And then you ask yourself, what was the readily information that they had at the time? Like, how easy would it have been to say, Australians to like read into eyewitness accounts in America or in the States, or like other UFO reports? You know what I mean? It would have to take time, and it wasn't so like, talked about outside news, outside the, whatever country it is feeding the information to their like, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
Anyway, so when I keep hearing the correlation between the type of ship it is or whatnot, it's like you said, it's just too many eyewitness accounts that are, it's just too many weird coincidences that are adding up.
Right. If you take any part of the case by itself, it may not be super interesting, but when you add it all up, it starts to look pretty damn weird. All right, so I think ETA, did you want to talk a little bit about the area? They call it the something triangle down there?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So this entire area before and after this event has been a host to all sorts of different events and mysterious, disappearances of like nautical and, ships and stuff too. Whatever. But there's been planes that have disappeared in this area, and like ships and stuff, and a lot of them have been under like mysterious circumstances. Yeah. So I mean, even all right. So like one event like that happened well before this was on October 19th of 1934, actually, which is one of the events that kind of like spurred this type of interest in this area as far as like missing persons are concerned, or missing vessels, whatever you want to call it. So in 1934, you had this in the Bass Strait Triangle, as I would call it, because it's very similar to the Bermuda Triangle because of the strange occurrences and, like I said, missing peoples. There was a vessel called the Miss Hobart, right, and it went missing under really strange circumstances because supposedly, like, it wasn't like there wasn't very much weather in the area, like it wasn't high seas. It was somewhat calm, and like it vanished without like a trace of any debris. There are some similarities between these two cases because all they found was a slick of oil in the ocean. Now, back then, they weren't able to analyze the oil to find out, was this the same type of oil or what have you? Was this aviation fluid, or was it, diesel or whatever kind of engine, whatever kind of, propulsion they were using? But like, there are some similarities between these two cases because there was a lot of people that went out and looked for the Miss Hobart, and they spent quite a bit of time. I don't really know how much time that they took. It seems like 7 days is a reasonable estimate because I heard all sorts of different time periods being provided within, the little bit of research that I did about this case. But it's still, pretty important because it's one of the early cases that happened in the area, and like it never really kind of stopped. Like there was always like missing people in this area. Like I said, it's like a Bermuda Triangle type area. And as a matter of fact, for the Miss Hobart, I think there was a squadron of 3 planes that had actually gone out to find any debris or the ship itself, and all 3 of those ships, or all 3 of those airplanes, didn't return. It was like it added on to the mystery. You know what I mean? It's like one of those areas where just like it seems like it's so close to civilization. You know what I mean? Like it's not in like a remote area. You know what I mean? Like it's like there's enough civilization around that area to where you'd think ships and airplanes and the amount of stuff that has gone missing in the area, to me at least, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You would think that like more missing ships or missing persons that have gone missing in this area would have been found. You know what I mean? But like there's this long history. There's this long history of just like unreasonable stuff that has happened in this little area. You know what I mean? Which, like I said before, there are some really strong currents, and it's not a kind ocean. You know what I mean? Like it's not like a I don't know, what would you call it? Like a
hospitable environment for ships?
It's not the worst, but at certain times of the year, for sure, it can be that ocean can become very violent. At the drop of a dime. You know what I mean? So, but at any rate, the whole area has had, from like I said, 1934 to the Valentich disappearance to even recently, like for example, in 2011. Now, this isn't the exact same kind of like disappearance or what have you, but there is like some supposed possible UFO interaction here, I guess you could say, whatever. Like, it is a missing person. So in 2011, there was a writer who was actually an American writer who had been living in Australia, I think, for something around 10 years at this point. She took a 8-day vacation down to Bruny Island in Tasmania. So it's around the same area. It was an 8-day trip, and she was like staying in this little shack, like kind of out in like the sticks, I guess you could say. It wasn't like right next to like a village or like a high populated area. She kind of was like going into this like deliberately like roughing it. You know what I mean? It wasn't like she was not staying at a 5-star resort or what have you. You know what I mean? Like she wasn't trying to have those type of comforts. She wanted to really like experience like nature and stuff like that. But so anyways,
a lot braver than me. I mean, Australia. This is what was happening in Australia, right?
In Tasmania. Yeah,
in Tasmania. Because that's too crazy. I mean, the spiders and the lizards and things that are ungodly seem to live down there.
Well, it just seems like all the predators that are present in Australia, like southern Australia especially, and some of these islands like Tasmania and Bruny Island and stuff, they all want to kill you. Like anything that's
bad attitude.
Anything that's poisonous is poisonous to the point where it'll kill you with one bite easily. Like if you don't like get like some kind of antidote or anti-venom, or if you're not right next to a hospital. I mean, there are literally like spiders and snakes that can bite you in the parking lot of a hospital in Australia, and you still might not freaking survive. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
she's got bigger balls than me. That's for sure.
I would agree with that statement, sir. Yes.
Yes.
But so anyways, her name was Rachel Finari. Okay. And she was an American writer, and she had taken this. She had lived in Australia, like I said before, 10 years already, and she took this trip out to Bruny Island. It was an 8-day trip, and the thing that is really weird is a lot of the locals in the area had described seeing glowing lights and like flashing lights and like really weird like lights in the area that she was staying, like right above like the field, especially where she was staying in the shack, right? So they kind of attribute that to her possibly being abducted, because all right, so once like it was realized by like the locals and like people that were in contact with her that she hadn't checked in or like she was missing, they went immediately and investigated like her living quarters, the little shack that she was living in, and they found all of her belongings were still there. Her bed looked like it had not been slept in, like it was made up and everything, and didn't look like anything was left like in haste. You know what I mean? And it was just such a weird, like everything was like in its place and everything was like, very organized and like, but she was gone. There was no trace of
Signs of struggle.
her
no,
or
like
signs of
foul
struggle.
play.
Yeah. Yeah. There was nothing to like,
Just vanished.
yeah, she was just gone. She was just plain gone. Which I mean, in that area, maybe she just took a stroll in the wrong direction and got attacked by some predator or something like that, or maybe she got bit by, I don't know what snakes or venomous creatures are in that area, but it's definitely possible that she could have just, took a wrong direction and ended up dying somewhere where nobody ever found her. You know what I mean? That's definitely possible. But the reason why I think this case is very interesting is because of the locals that describe, basically they say that they saw like a UFO in the area, you know what I mean? Like which was making a ruckus, I guess you could say, which is a funny way of putting it, but there's a lot of locals that saw strange lights and stuff in that very same area. And they think that it's possible that she may have been abducted. You know what I mean? So in that very case is another case where I think that might be worthy. Well, might be. It's definitely, I think, worthy of its own case investigation.
Yeah, actually, it sounds like it. I'm not familiar with that one.
Down, yeah.
I'm giving a very broad, explanation of this, and I haven't done very much research. This was just like a case that I stumbled on that I wasn't aware of before. Like Agent Anderson had said before, I was aware that there had been UFO, abductions or sightings in Australia, but I wasn't aware of the vast amount of cases that there are. Like I just wasn't aware. I mean, once I got into this case that we're doing right now, the Valentich case, I started to pick up on a whole assortment. Like, holy shit, dude! Just in this southern area that we're talking about, the southern area of Africa,
Australia.
Edit.
Australia, edit. God, they both start with an A. Shut up.
Australia, Ken?
No, Africa though. As a matter of fact, I think the actual real wealth of information is in ancient UFO abductions or ancient UFO observations, I guess you'd say. There are some amazing stuff, fucking amazing stuff that has happened in Africa. Sorry to be so vulgar about it, but I'm very excited about some of those cases I'm sure someday we will do. But even like in modern day, sorry to get off on this wild tangent, but like South Africa, oh boy, there has been some cases in South Africa, man.
Yes.
Even just the southern region of Africa. Holy mother of God, there are some pretty cool shit that supposedly have happened there. Now, I'm not going to get into it because these are potential cases I think we might cover in the future. But sorry, I digress. This area, the Bass Strait Triangle, whatever you want to call it, or even just the southern area of Australia, the southern coast, along the southern coast from the west to the east, there has been some amazing stories that have arisen, as far as like accounts that people have given, whether it been an abduction or a UFO, observation of some sort. You know what I mean? Like, this is a hotspot, dude. This is one of those areas of the world that I think we need to concentrate more on. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, there's a ton of interesting cases in this area. All right, that's the weirdness of the Bass Strait Triangle. Now let's talk a little bit about some possible explanations for the Valentich case. There's some good ones and some even better ones. I have a personal favorite, but I'll start off with probably the most likely scenario that we sort of touched on earlier, was that for whatever reason, he staged his own disappearance. And after he reached Cape Otway, he would have had, his plane was fueled up all the way from what I read, and he would have had enough fuel to fly another 500 miles or so. And there were some reports of a small plane landing near Cape Otway around the time that he disappeared. And even if that wasn't him, 500 miles, that's a pretty decent distance. I mean, you could go a long ways. You could possibly disappear in 500 miles.
Yeah, you would have to prepare, I think, beforehand and set up like areas, not like put things into place, but know where you could refuel or what have you. You know what I mean? Like to get to other places or what have you. But like I agree. So a couple of the main things that really give me pause in this case is that it appears that he told his family one thing and people at the airport another thing as far as what he intended to do with this flight, right? So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But like the fact that he fully fueled this plane up and like with way more fuel than he needed for this trip, round trip, I mean, that could be a red flag, I suppose, or it could be just like him being a considerate motherfucker.
It was a rental plane, so they might have fueled it for him. He might not have fueled it. Yeah.
That could be a stipulation. Yeah, you could be right about that for sure. It might not have been under his control to begin with. It was the gas tank that he took over, right? It was full, right? But like, I don't know. It's weird. I find the whole situation a little weird.
He did bring extra life jackets with him, which I found an interesting detail. So it seems like he was trying to convince people that he was going there for a legitimate reason in case somebody asked up on him. But
and also he didn't radio ahead to this airport, which is not full time manned.
Right.
It's not manned full time. Whatever. Anyways, so you have to call ahead, especially at nighttime, to let them know that they need to turn on the lights on a landing strip.
Right. Yeah. So the explanation that he staged his own disappearance or that he somehow just absconded, I think that's probably the most likely one. If you want like a non-weird explanation, there's a lot to support it. Yeah.
Well, and his family actually kind of, I think, gives a little bit of inclination to this topic, this theory, because I don't know if inclination is the right word. Whatever, dude. So actually now, I know it's not. But anyways.
We're doing it live.
Yeah, we're doing it live. Fuck it. But no. So his family, like his dad in particular, and his mom, are I don't know. It's kind of weird. Some of the statements that they made afterwards, like his dad, claiming that because he was in the what is the Air Force, RAF? What is it?
The Royal Australian
Air Force, RAAF, right? Okay, yeah. So he was in he wasn't in the RAAF. He was like a trainee, he wasn't technically in, he was like in a volunteer force, basically, from what I understand, right? Because
yes.
he had failed a lot of the entry exams and stuff like that, but he had a lot of, like I said before, he had a lot of effort that he put in. You know what I mean? So he was very, very intent on making that goal eventually. But so I don't know, man. Oh god damn it! Hold on, edit, dude. I brain farted so hard right now. All right, god damn it. What was I talking about before? I had a point. I had a serious point I was about to make. But I completely forgot.
I don't know, but one thing that bothers me about this explanation is that it was a rented airplane, and even if it wasn't, airplanes are very, very expensive, and they're fairly, I mean, where are you going to put it? Like, if you land at an airport, somebody's going to notice it sooner or later, and they're going to check the serial number, and they're going to be like, hey, this isn't supposed to be here, and somebody's looking for it, and they're going to find it. But it was never found. So where would he put the airplane that it wouldn't be found? Somebody's going to be looking for that airplane because they're very expensive. Even a cheap one is very expensive.
It's going to be identified really fast no matter who sees it, because in the field of aviation, whether you be somebody who is refueling planes at a gas pump or somebody who is actually a pilot, or no matter what you are, within that field of aviation, whether you're a mechanic, whatever you are, the first thing you're going to be looking at any plane is going to be the identifying tag. You know what I mean? So they're going to notice those numbers on any plane. That's going to be one of the first things that they look at. You know what I mean?
And another problem I have with this particular theory is that there doesn't seem to be any motive for it. Like, why would he stage his own disappearance? He had nothing to hide from.
It's just the opposite, in fact. I mean, he has a fiance, and, he's passionate about flying. He has his whole life there in Australia. he
So some of the statements that his dad made and his mom made also, like, kind of give me a little bit of pause because, like, his pops seems to be a little bit, I don't know, quasi.
Yeah. So the way I look at that is, I mean, if your kid probably died in a crash, that's going to mess with your head. And I saw some interviews, man, it's pretty heartbreaking. But the father, he wanted it to be an alien abduction because he wanted to believe that his son was still okay out there somewhere and that his son would someday return to him. And
you know what? I agree. I think that ultimately that's probably the main force that drove him, to be honest. Yeah, I agree.
So that's kind of how I took it. Like, sure, he had some strange opinions, but that's how I interpreted his interview that I saw, is that that's what he really wanted to be the truth. And for him, he made that the truth in his own head, whether or not there's any evidence for it.
One of the things I really want to get at, though, before the abduction, it seems like his father and himself, in different like interviews I've heard from like, family friends or friends of him growing up, or even his brother, like, it seems like there's a bit of contradictory going on here, or what's the right word? I'm hearing contradictory statements being provided here because some of his friends say that, like, the guy like was no more interested in UFOs than the average person was. You know what I mean? But then, like, his dad said that, like, he was always a very, very avid UFO enthusiast. But like, then also there was also the story that I heard of his mom, like, before this whole thing had gone down, having, a claim that she was a UFO abductee. And like, I don't know, man, like, if that is true, like, I don't know, man, like the reality that Frederick Valentich lived in may not have been the same reality that you and I live in. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. That's definitely a possibility, but it's also, there are plenty of stories out there with people who are multiple abductees or people who have seen more than one UFO, almost as if they're being tracked throughout their lifetime. For example, a prominent case we've spoken about before is George St. Pierre, who's had multiple UFO sightings and thinks that he's had multiple incidents of missing time, and he thinks it's possible that he's been abducted more than once. But I think to me, like, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan
kick
of
their ass.
But here's the thing, man. Like, when you're talking about missing time or what have you, I think it's way more likely that it might be CTE or something.
Well,
considering what he's done throughout.
It could be, but that's just an example we've talked about on the show. We actually haven't done that much abduction stuff, but that's one example. But there's many, many examples like that where people have had multiple experiences. So just because they're, UFO enthusiasts or they have had past experiences, that doesn't necessarily change the fact that he saw something strange and then he disappeared shortly thereafter. It doesn't mean that it was aliens, but it doesn't necessarily change what he saw either. Let's get back to some more possible explanations here of the Valentich disappearance.
There's, of course, that he crashed.
Yeah, that's, I mean,
No, you got disoriented.
You got disoriented.
If you want to take the easy way out, sure.
Well,
Right.
some people say that he was upside down, that, he turned his plane upside down and he was seeing the reflection.
Gravity-fed plane and wouldn't be able to do it for more than 10 seconds.
What light is green?
Gravity-fed fuel.
What light is green on the plane? People were saying that he was seeing the reflection of his own light on the plane.
Well,
and I heard that he was also seeing the reflection off the water or something like that too. And
yeah, there's a couple problems with this theory. First of all, he was flying at 4,500 feet, right? So even if he was flying upside down above a perfect mirror, it's like almost a mile away. 4,500 feet is pretty close to a mile. And even at that distance, a plane light is not going to look like what he described at all, like not even close. But the ocean, of course, is not a perfect mirror. It's very wavy and choppy, and it's just not a good reflector, especially from a mile away. It's just not completely implausible. But even if that was the case, and it could account for the sighting, the fact is that this particular airplane cannot fly upside down. It has a top wing, and the wing tank, or the fuel tanks are in the wing, and the engine is gravity fed with fuel. So if it was flying upside down, the engine would stall out very, very quickly. Whereas he was reporting this on the 6-minute conversation, throughout that conversation, he was reporting this light. not a chance he could fly upside down for 6 minutes. Just not going to happen in this airplane.
Right.
Yeah, and that's assuming that it wasn't edited and it was actually a much longer conversation than that. It just
And
Well, I also read he
Which
might
it
have been
was.
spiraling.
yeah.
so wait, it's open information that he's an inexperienced pilot, and yet he's pulling off that maneuver. Like I don't know. Like I don't know.
Yeah, I read the spiral theory that it was like Mars, Venus, and like I don't know, a star.
Jupiter.
But it just that only works.
Why the hell are there planets involved? Sorry to interject, but what the fuck does that have to do with anything? Like
That's-
what?
That's what one of the skeptics says. He says that the planets caused the sighting, but that's, I mean, come on.
Well,
I'm
because in the
seeing,
first
so he's
part,
seeing a planet. That's what's making him. He's seeing a planet that like you can't see with the human eye, like unless it's just a star. Like I don't, whatever. Sorry, that's ridiculous to me.
well,
Yeah.
because
Oh
in
my
the
God,
first
Jupiter, I'm
part
gonna
of
shoot myself.
in the first part of the transcript, didn't he describe 4 landing lights?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it was, I can't remember if it was 4, but he did describe, but if you're flying and you see a light in the distance that's very bright, you might interpret that as a landing light, right?
But he said there was more than one.
Well, maybe there was, but when it got closer, the description that he gave to the air traffic controller was nothing like Venus and Mars forming a shape in the sky. Even if he was spiraling, that's absurd. Not a
He
chance.
basically explained an object that was flying along with him in the air that was like taunting him,
Right.
playing with him.
Yeah.
You know?
This sounds all similar. This is what the Pentagon has released with the 2 pilots that have given their eyewitness reports about how it seemed like to just tail them, or it would tail them, and or they would be in pursuit and it would just be out of range. So I mean, like we didn't have the ability to record what he was seeing back in the day, but we were able to record it with his voice and everything, and that's there's a correlation with everything about how they're just keeping out of reach. Whatever.
This particular explanation I found on, I think it was the Skeptoid by Brian Dunning, and it was the worst kind of clickbait. The article was something like, you know, after all these years, we finally explained the Valentich disappearance, and then you click on it, and it's like, Venus. You're like, God damn it.
You know, it's funny. I think I read the exact
should've-
same article.
I should have known better than to click on that goddamn article, but all right, you got me. You got me, Mr. Dunning.
I wasted about-
Good
I
on
wasted
you.
about
You know,
5
if
minutes
he
on
was
that
a
one.
real cultured man, he would put Uranus.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, I agree.
An anomalous sighting of Uranus.
God damn.
Gaseous
You got me.
numerous.
He got me. You can have this one.
All right. Got me again. Just why I don't click on this
So,
stuff
what are
anymore.
some other theories?
All right. Another prominent theory is that that he committed suicide, which
Oh,
it's plausible.
That's a possible. Yeah.
It's plausible, but-
especially with failed attempts and like stuff like that. But there's also like a false report that he was discussing with his colleagues of depressed states and how he was having suicidal thoughts. But from everything else I've looked up, that's false. But
Well,
I don't know. He was a
who knows?
20-year-old young go-getter that could get into a plane. It doesn't matter if you're failing what he was doing. He still had so many years ahead of him to improve his craft to be able to get his dream job, which
Yeah.
was clearly something in aviation. He, to be a pilot, you have
He had
to
a
be
lot of motivation.
I mean, I guess like the tests back in the day, maybe they could have been more rigorous, but I can't speak from experience or, like growing up in that time. But, my father was an aviator. I mean, for the small time that he flew helicopters and stuff like that. And you have to be on your A game. I mean, a lot of these guys don't just make their, I don't know. It's just, I doubt it was just a momentary lapse in, how did he get disoriented? Was he doing maneuvers? Like, I mean,
Yeah, and the problem with the suicide theory is there's absolutely no evidence. Nobody has said that he was exhibiting any symptoms of depression or anything like that. So it's plausible, but I think it's probably unlikely that he would have just, crashed his plane into the water.
right. And he just gotten
I mean-
engaged the month before.
exactly
You
what I was
know,
about to say.
yeah.
Yeah. And you're going to, and I could see there being, and sorry to interject,
Well,
Ether, that
Maybe
there could have been.
he had gotten engaged and realized the reality of what marriage is in the real world, and like just decided like, you know what, I better just kill myself.
I mean, to do it in a fashion where it's similar to the accounts that we have in modern day, but also because he was a ufologist or he
Well,
was
and
a
he
UFO
also didn't sign
fan,
a prenup.
like he would have like it's just to go out in that way. I couldn't even make up like something that the only thing is if he made it up to he would correlate it to a story that was out there, right, and put a spin on it himself.
Well,
And
the
then-
story also just like taking into account what his parents. It seems like both of his parents were definitely like in on the UFO type thing. They're all in. Like Dan Aykroyd. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they were all
Well,
they were all in. You know what I mean? It seems to me, at least.
What is peculiar is the misinformation that he gave both to his family and to his friends about his whereabouts. That is a red
The reason
flag,
why he was going
obviously.
on the flight to begin with.
Yeah, but at
Yeah,
the
that
same
is
time, I read that his girlfriend / fiance was invited to that flight on the 21st, and she had to work
didn't
late,
catch that.
so she missed it.
No way.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
could be as simple as the fact that, flying costs money. It ain't cheap, even back then, I'm sure. And maybe he just wanted to go flying. He wanted to get up there and fly, and he needed a reason for that. So maybe he just said, I'm going to pick up crayfish, or I'm going to pick up some people, just to have an excuse to fly. I mean, you could come up with any number of reasons as to why he would have fabricated that.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting piece, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything,
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe he just wanted to go out flying, but he didn't want to go out alone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So selfishly, very, very selfishly, he invited his fiance with him, because if he's going to go out, right, if he's going to commit suicide, then, we'll just do it together because we were meant to be together, right? In whatever convoluted mind state he may have been in, maybe, just potentially. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The last explanation I have for this one is that this is my personal favorite, by the way, is that he became disoriented when he was flying. So he didn't know which way he was going or whatever. And then he tried to reenact the opening scene from Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which had just come out.
Yeah.
Like that, I'm not kidding. I actually read this on a skeptical website. This was an actual explanation. No, I think this might have been a podcast or something, whatever. But I read about this one. This is a serious proposal from a skeptic. He said that because the radio transmission was similar to the opening scene of the movie, then he was trying to reenact that or something. I don't
Well,
know.
have you ever looked at both the transcripts side by side?
No, I have not.
They are similar enough to me to where it gives you pause, because this movie came out before he did this, right? Well, before this incident happened. Okay, and it was like a very, very freaking popular movie. If you were just just casually interested in UFOs at this time period, you would have watched this movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, there doesn't seem, other than, the coincidence of it being similar, there's absolutely nothing to back up. I mean, why would he choose this particular point in time to reenact that, and then he would just disappear? It's kind of a strange explanation.
Hey, everybody's timeline is different,
I guess. Yeah.
People do have, yeah, never mind. Sorry, I was going to compare, sorry, I'll let you finish. And then
Oh, yeah. Well, and then, of course, we've already touched on it as another explanation is that he was abducted somehow by a UFO, which, you could look at it that way, and he definitely saw something weird. But I don't know, maybe it was like some kind of military plane or something. But it could have been some sort of UFO involved, that, alien craft that downed him or sucked him up or something. But that's just pure speculation. We have absolutely no way to, substantiate that. It's an interesting idea, though.
there is that human element though that, well, I gotta say this before I forget it, but the human element of like where, you can't predict a human, I mean, like what they intend to do, obviously, but I mean, like this somewhat, like this kind of, I don't know, you can't compare the two because they have nothing to do with this other story I'm comparing it to. It has nothing to do with paranormal activity, but it's the example of if he were to commit suicide, there is that element of you just can't, like sometimes we just snap. Like sometimes there's just something in us that just switches over and we just throw all caution to the wind and just don't give a shit. like the in I forget, it was Washington State, where that the ground control service agent, he hopped into a plane, and it was on my birthday, actually, August 10th in 2018, that he did this, and then he went spinning around in that airplane doing maneuvers that veteran pilots are like, "Oh, that's crazy! I can't believe he was able to pull that off with such a plane." And point is that he had his life mapped out, basically. I mean, he was gonna he got his degree. He just was recently married. Like, he had a lot of things on the up and up, and then all of a sudden he waited for his moment to just run into an open cockpit plane, take off, and have fun. Like, and he just killed himself by like crashing his plane directly into a lightly populated area. And there's a conversation, you can hear the whole like transmission between ground control and him, and it's just like, "Yeah, I didn't mean to do this, didn't mean to ruin your day," and like, it's just genuine kid. And I don't know, it's sad, but sometimes people snap. It's just people.
Anything's possible, but I don't see any sign of him snapping during this case.
Not snapping. That's too violent of a word, I would say.
He did see some strange lights that he reported to the air traffic control.
True.
So I mean, it's I don't.
And that scraping, metal scraping, or electric pulse.
Yeah, and then you have the 17 seconds of him not saying anything, but he's holding the radio channel open. And is he paralyzed or whatever? I mean, it's a very strange case, and it absolutely could have been something weird happening up there. But then again, it could have just been something that appeared to be weird and wasn't really weird. It was just a regular old plane crash. I don't know.
Did they gauge his, I should have been able to catch this, but did they show at what altitude he could have been at? Because
yeah, he reported his altitude at 4,500 feet.
Okay. Oh, wow. All right. Never mind. I thought he could have been at some altitude where he could have gotten some sort of hypoxia type of situation where, you know what I mean? Like, that Cessna is not built to be in high altitude situations. So, I mean,
not this Cessna.
Right. So,
Not
I
this
mean, could he have just taken it up and was just fucking around? And because he disobeyed, there is a history of him disobeying the rules. So in flight, but, when he gives his report saying his altitude, he could just go off and do something else. I'm not sure if we had the technology to keep tracking like what he would be at, unless, or, you know what I mean? I'm not sure the technology that we really had in the 70s, but could he have just been like, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to tell him I'm here, and then I'm just going to take this sucker up as high as I can. I'm going to see what she's got." And then all of a sudden, hypoxia and all that bullshit sets in, and then he starts spinning out. But I'll shut up. I digress. Sorry.
Yeah, I guess it's possible, but it doesn't seem to be any evidence for that. But I suppose that's one possibility.
Yeah, dude, it's a total possibility. Here's what I think happened, right? So you have this crew aboard a spaceship that was like, part of like, they were like basically like, what would you call it? You would call it basically like, bounty hunters, I guess you could say, and so like you have this crew, right? So the main leader was Spike Spiegel, and then you got Jet Black, then Faye Valentine, Ed, and then N, right? And so like you had these like bounty hunters, right? Like and they mistakenly took, Valentich as like one of their, like targets. You know what I mean? Like they thought that like this guy was like, this fucking, like a target that they need to capture in order to make a bounty off of, right? So they mistakenly, abducted this individual, out of Earth's atmosphere, and then took him back up into space. You know what I mean?
Could be.
Then and then Faye Valentine, being the very cold-hearted individual she can be sometimes, like was just like, all right, this is the wrong guy, kill him. Let's go after the right guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like Spike would definitely agree with that to me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying is all.
Totally.
Hey, by the way,
you take the bebop?
a totally, no, shut the fuck up. A totally unrelated topic. Have you guys ever watched the anime Cowboy Bebop?
No, I've never heard of it.
Never heard of it.
He lies.
It's great. It's really good.
Excellent one, yeah.
Yeah, no, that is a good one. One of my favorites.
It's really fucking good.
Have
Of
you
course it
just
is.
discovered it? Is that why you're so excited?
What? I thought you've seen it.
I know that wasn't directed towards me.
Well, I don't know. Why are you mentioning it? That's so random.
which is exactly why I mentioned it. Come
Okay.
on now.
Okay.
Have you identified my particular type of comedy yet?
Have you guys seen the movie, or are you guys you've seen both series and movie?
I have seen everything
That's the
Cowboy
important
Bebop
question.
related.
There we go.
Uh,
All right.
I'm very confident in saying that.
Agent Ether
Agent
is
Ether.
not
Ethy.
entertained.
Wait, Agent Ethy? Who the fuck is that, dude?
That's our
Wait a minute now.
secret agent.
Yeah,
Okay.
All right.
Nice.
Agent Ether, any final thoughts on the Valentich disappearance?
well, there is one option no one's considered, and that would be related to time travel. That
Oh.
somehow going through
Oh,
this.
fuck yeah.
Oh, I mentioned that. I
Based
said the drone.
straight.
The drones.
Yes. Well, that the plane somehow either was transported to the future or the past and then crashed, which is why there's no evidence of the wreckage.
I saw a comment that I was chuckling at. Is like, imagine hundreds of years from now when we have aliens just frequently visiting us. We find out that he's just like an alien warlord in some other planet. Like he's just this giant god.
Yeah, took over Mars or something.
Yeah, he's like Omni-Man.
Yeah.
Going to a different planet.
I like it. Time traveling. Well, that would, of course, explain everything that happened. And maybe the metallic sounds, that's what you heard while he was transitioning to the other timeline or dimension or whatever have you. That's I like that one. That's a fun one. I didn't run across that
I
one.
think the
That's 'cause
cartel
I
is
made
trying
it
to get
up.
him to work
Oh.
for him.
Well, it's still really good. even if
I
you
didn't run
make it up.
across it either.
Hey,
I just made it up.
My theory was about like, hey, what if all these ships that have correlations to their shape and design and everything are somehow some technology that we've tapped into in the future that we've been just dicking around and been like, oh fuck, they found us, get away. Like, you know what I mean? And we're just, I don't know, just zipping around, fucking with
Or
ourselves.
maybe it's
Never
more
know,
likely,
man.
more likely that like an AI that we have developed outlives human civilization, takes over afterwards. You know what I mean?
Hey,
then afterwards
hear that, and I
contacts
think
like an
of sex
alien,
bots.
another, sex bots. Good
Ooh.
Lord, if I can afford one.
Soon,
Yes, sir.
brother.
Yes,
soon.
sir. Why not? Hey, I'm just saying, why the fuck not? That's all I'm saying.
We're agents. We deserve it.
You guys keep those
All
sex
right.
spots to yourself.
All right, guys. I think that about wraps it up for this week's episode. Thanks for listening. You can follow the show on Twitter at AlienConPod. We also have an email address, alienconpod@protonmail.com. We would love
And
to hear
also,
from
if you are a production manufacturer of for example, like a fembot, like if you've ever watched Austin Powers, like whichever one or two, whatever it was, The Spy That Shagged Me, I don't give a fuck. If you happen to produce a Carmen Electra type a version of a fembot,
Hit
and
us up.
wait, if it's within $5,000 or so, I might be able to swing it.
No,
I'm gonna have to
forget
save.
that. No, forget that. Send us a sample.
Don't
Send us a
forget
demo,
it. No,
and
make
we'll
it.
give you a
Make that
review.
shit.
We'll review
no,
it
please
for you.
make it. Please make it with
Sponsor us.
realistic genitalia.
All right. Anyways, if you enjoyed this show, you can really help us out by leaving a good review wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yeah. Hey, Agent Anderson,
All right.
have fun fucking editing this shit.
I know. Oh, there's going to be a lot of work on this one. That's for
Can I turn on the air conditioning now?